Broken Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching the first episode of Marvel's Moonknight, the brand new Disney Plus show starring Oscar Isaac as multi-personality slash superhero Batman type Moonknight character. Okay, so this is gonna be a full spoiler review, so obviously go watch the episode and then come back. And yeah, I'm going into this, and I feel like it's important to say this. I'm going into this with only the bare basics understanding of what Moonknight is. I know that he has multiple personalities, and I know he's sort of a Batman type character, and really that's about it, you know. So the reason I say this is because, you know, at least from what I've seen some people say on the internet, there are some changes between the way that the show depicts the character versus the comic books, which I don't know, maybe that'll get some people upset down the road, but for me, because this is really my first like long-term exposure to this character, I can't tell the difference. I don't know what is and is not based on the comics or is just an original thing that the show came up with. So anyways, just so you know where I'm coming from. And yeah, this first episode, this was a fantastic introduction episode. Like this whole thing, we're taken from the perspective of I think his name is Stephen Grant. That's the name of this personality, and the reason I really love that they did this was because, like, you know, we're only seeing what he sees. So when he blacks out and he misses a whole fight scene or 3 days or something, we also miss out on that fight scene. And normally I think people would have been like kind of upset about that, like, oh, we don't get to see all the awesome action scenes, but I think it works really well as sort of like a psychological thriller almost, you know, because you really get the feeling like, okay, this guy is losing it, or he's, you know, he's being cursed, or, you know, like, we only know the information that he knows. And I thought that was a really, really smart decision. Now, what I can imagine happening in the next episode, in episode 2, I have to imagine covers a lot of the same ground over the last couple days, because essentially what we're gonna probably see is that the other personality takes over, or maybe this is the original personality, I don't know, of Mark Spector, who we do hear the name Mark several times, and he's being called a mercenary, and he's essentially the action guy. He's the guy who can kick everyone's ass and kill everyone in the room, and I believe he's also the one, see, I don't know if Moonknight, the superhero, I don't know if that's like a third personality or if that's part of Mark Spector. You know, again, pretty unclear as to exactly how it works, but anyways, episode 2 is probably going to follow Mark Spector, the different personality, and I have to imagine that that's when we're going to be filled in on the context of everything that was happening, because we know that he, you know, Stephen Grant wakes up in a village, and then we see, what's his name, Ethan Hunt's character. We see him as like this cult leader, and then he had stolen some scarab when he was as the other personality, so, you know, everyone's chasing him down, and, you know, so we're missing a whole lot of context as to exactly what's going on, but I have to imagine that it's all, you know, it's obviously all going to be filled out as we go forward. But I can imagine episode 2 being essentially a retread of what we just saw, but from the other perspective. That way we fully understand what was going on there. So there's a lot of other things, like, for example, was some of this all just a dream? You know, like, it does the Steven personality live sort of in a you know, in a somewhere like a mental prison, you know, like a fake reality inside of his own mind, while the other personality is in charge? Because he seems to pass out, but at the same time we see other things, like he's calling his mom and he's talking to his mom all the time, but it's like, is that really his mom, or is that something else? You know, is that someone pretending to be his mom, or is he talking to nobody on the phone? You know, just little things like that. And even at the very beginning of this episode of this show, he's talking to some girl in the museum, in describing how they would, like, entomb people in Egypt and how they would like take out all the organs and stuff. And then she asked him a question of like, oh well, did it hurt when they did it to you? And he's like, well, what are you talking about? I'm not dead. And then he gets distracted with something else, and I was like, okay, hold on, that might have been a hint that like, is this all real? Is like what's going on here? Was that like a hint that this was fake and that this was not really happening? So I feel like this show's gonna play around a lot with that stuff, like how much of this actually did happen and how much of it was just part of like the Steven personality fake, fake background, and also which one of them is the real personality? Is Mark Spector the actual person? Like, was he born and his birth certificate says Mark Spector? Or is it the other way around? Is Stephen Grant the actual person and that's what his birth certificate says? So that's kind of interesting. I kind of, we're obviously going to get all these answers, but there's this one left a lot of things that you want to know, and you like, this was a good hook for the series, like it left you going like, I have to know what's going on. And yes, I could look up a lot of this stuff and probably get exactly how the show's going to depict it, but I kind of don't want to. I don't want to do more research. I don't want to know how he got in touch with this Egyptian god that's following him around and how he became Moonknight. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Let the show do its thing, So this is like one of the rare occurrences where it's like, I feel like I'm gonna enjoy this better by knowing less about the comics, because like it's all gonna be a surprise, and that's clearly what the show is doing. It's like, this was, the suspense of this was built around you not knowing the answers, rather than people who read the comics and they already know everything that's going on already. So I'm pretty excited by this. Now, the bad guy, it is Ethan Hunt, right? That is that actor's name, I think. He seems to have his own like connection to this whole Egyptian gods and magic and all that stuff. He's got like a magic tattoo that judges people's soul, which reminded me a lot of Ghost Rider. So that was kind of interesting. Those two things don't have anything to do with each other, but I just thought that was interesting that they're like judging people, and then they'll absorb their energy or burn them away, if they're guilty. I thought that was kind of interesting. And yeah, I guess the other thing that I've heard a lot of reviewers, and I think, I don't know this for sure, but I believe a lot of like actual critics and reviewers, they have gotten a hold of like the first 3 episodes. I think that's how Marvel traditionally does this. But I've heard that there's not a lot of Marvel connections. There's not a lot of like mentions of, oh yeah, Thanos happened and this and that happened, which I'm perfectly fine with, to be honest. Like not all of this has to be hyper connected to each other, and it seems pretty clear that they're sort of building, some of these shows are gonna build their own tiny little, not in a literal way, but they're building their own little corner of the universe, where it's like, all right, this stuff is just gonna live here, and doesn't have to be involved with everything else. Kind of how the Netflix shows were, which strangely enough, they've just added all the Netflix shows back to Disney Plus, and that's that kind of opens the door to a whole other series of questions about like what they intend to do with that stuff. But yeah, I can imagine that Moonknight is going to be its own separate little thing that, like, is he going to show up in an Avengers movie? Probably not. It seems like he's very much a street level thing going on, and he's got his own Egyptian magic circle happening here. It doesn't have anything to do with any of this other stuff in Marvel, so I'm okay with it staying that way, especially because this show's showing some blood, and we showed some dead bodies in the background, and they're all bloody and messed up, and so I'm sure we're gonna get a lot more of that stuff going forward in this show, which again, interestingly enough, a recent report came out that for some reason that no one seems to understand why, Disney has gone back from the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they have edited out a lot of blood and a lot of gore, and you can find these examples online, but like there was like an explosion and this guy died, and in the original airing of the show, there's blood everywhere, and he's like, he's clearly dead. And then for whatever reason, they just put out an edited version where there's no blood at all. So I don't understand what they're doing, because obviously they just put out this episode today, and this episode shows blood and stuff. So very confusing. I don't know why they would do this. Hopefully we get some sort of clarity as to, like, why are you censoring some shows out of blood but not other shows, but they're all the Marvel TV shows. What's the difference here? I don't know. Very interesting. But either way, this episode left you with a lot of questions that you want answered, and I actually don't want to look it up. I don't want to know. I just want to watch the show and let it happen. And I think that's the other thing, is that, like, because I have not read the comics really, I think I read maybe one trade paperback one time, I don't have this, like, level of attachment to this character or that character, so they can kind of just do whatever they want, and it's all, I won't even notice. So either way, I'm really excited. This was a great episode to introduce us to this. And I have to imagine the next episode will be the action episode. Next episode is going to be where we'll get the other personality, Mark Spector, and he's, we're going to see his perspective of, like, why were they stealing this scarab? Why were they going over here to this place? What's up with this guy? Like, we're going to get all the answers next episode. So it's going to feel very different, but, I think there's only 6 episodes, so they kind of do have to, get to it. But either way, this was a great start. Anyways, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.